Let's talk about the here and now. This is weird. The trade deadline. Let's not ignore. This has been weird, but it's just been weird
Yeah.
in the fact that you had Kimbrel sign late. It was weird that Keuchel signed late. That we're seeing weird things about the market and free agency we hadn't seen before. This is now the first deadline where there is no waiver period behind it. Can we draw a through line between everything I've just said, Jason? Do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it, yeah. And this has really been an odd deadline. People thought that the impact of only having one deadline and no August trades would be that everything would start sooner. But instead, almost nothing of consequence has happened yet. And you've got a really strange structure in most of these divisions where the division leaders have really big leads. And there are very few teams that can look at the division standings other than the NL and AL Central and think, yeah, we're going to catch that team. But then you have this whole group of teams that's 2-3 games out of the wild card, a game and a half out of the wild card. And I think it's creating a weird kind of gridlock in that those teams have a really hard time selling when they're 2 games out of contention, right, or out of a playoff spot. But it's hard to buy when you know your reward for even sneaking in is you've got to win that wild card game, and then you got to try to figure out some way to beat the Dodgers or Yankees. Good luck. And so those teams don't want to buy. They're afraid to sell. Everybody's just in a holding pattern, waiting for some clarity or trying to figure out some way they're going to explain it to their fan base when they finally do what they do.
Well, I mean, the Giants are a perfect example, right? I mean, the Giants were dead in the April, May, and June waters, and now they're on fire. They're above water. They're 2 games above 500. You can make the case that they're the best team in baseball in the month of July. Madison Bumgarner's not going anywhere with Bochy walking eventually to the place where you just got enshrined, right? I mean, there's no chance of him being traded in the next week. Would you categorize that, Jason?
I wouldn't say no chance, but they were 11 games under 500 entering July, and now they're 2 games over. That is just crazy.
It is.
That happened. And, I think in any normal circumstance, they'd go for it, but just take a step back now, Rich. Why did they hire Farhan Zaidi? That was a team that did everything internally. That was just a picture of stability. They didn't hire Farhan to keep the band together. That was not the plan. I'm sure there's incredible tension within that organization trying to figure out what to do. I wouldn't say never on Mad Bum. It's hard, but I wouldn't say never. I would say that if they trade him, it has to be the kind of deal where Farhan can look into the cameras and say, how could I not do this?
So then which is the team that offers them the Godfather offer, or should? Let's put it that way. Which team do you think needs to make the Godfather offer from Madison Bumgarner?
I mean, for the top of the list is the Braves. I think the Braves need a guy that fits that profile. He'd be really comfortable there. I think they'd have a chance to sign him and make it worth their while if they trade for him. That's the most logical fit for me. But, he's reminded us now during this run who he still is. He might not be the guy who marched out of the pen in Kansas City in 2014 in Game 7, but this guy's an animal, and he competes. And the better your team is, the better he is. And the bigger the game is, the bigger the moment is for him. He loves this. You put him on a good team, I think a lot of teams could dream on that and where it would go. But it's going to have to be a big deal. Big.
Okay, and name me another big name guy that you think could go. Let's say the Yankees or the Red Sox, or say, anybody else at the top of the food chain, even the Cubs, somebody that might Washington making a move here to try and do something.
I still think the guy to watch is Trevor Bauer. I mean, the Indians they're having exactly the same debate that the Giants are. All of a sudden, they're 16 games over. All of a sudden, they're 3 games out in the division. All of a sudden, if the wild card game were today, they would host it. And it's really difficult for a team like that to sell. And yet, I was in Cleveland for the All-Star game, and I get the feeling they know this team, as well as it's played lately, is not as good as their other teams. They're not a win the World Series team, not as currently constituted. If they could make a deal that's the equivalent of what the Rays did last year with Chris Archer, I'm convinced they would do that. A team like the Astros, can they absorb him into their clubhouse? All the drama that's gone on between him and that team, I don't know, but I'd watch them. They're shopping for that kind of guy. It wouldn't shock me if the Padres came out of the pack. I don't think we live in an age now where the trade deadline is all about buyers and sellers the way it once was. I think it's a shopping opportunity. That's how most teams now view it, your modern front offices. And so the Indians are smart and creative. There are a lot of teams out there that could buy Trevor Bauer knowing you have him next year too. He's a fascinating piece in this puzzle.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.